welcome to the show. Let me just ask you this. Are you feeling the division, the disrespect in the air when you speak to family, friends, just society in general? Got a very special guest today. Her name is Susan McCuistion, and she wrote the book, The D Word, 12 Steps to Diversity Recovery. Susan, where do we begin when we talk about diversity and respecting each other? What is your book generally about? Where do we begin?
Well, I want to start with how you started, Suzanne, with this division stuff. So have you ever been in a discussion with somebody and you were just so frustrated or angry that you couldn't think straight?
Yes.
And then afterwards, like you keep playing it over and over in your head?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
So
absolutely. It just gets a grip on you. You get so
yeah.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's happening to a lot of people right now. So we're living in a time that's very polarized. That's not going to be a surprising statement to anybody,
Right.
I'm sure, right?
Right.
And it feels like we are arguing all of the time. So when we can't think straight and when our head is spinning, that means what's happened is that our brain has disconnected from our heart. And so my work is all about connection. And it's whether that connection is within ourselves or with others. And so when we can connect our brain and our heart and allow our heart to guide us, we better connect with other people.
So when we're arguing, we're using our head, and you're saying maybe a little bit more compassion with your heart is a good place to start.
Yeah. So I really do focus on that compassion piece. And compassion, the definition of compassion is acting to relieve the suffering of another. And we can't do that until we understand two things. First, do they even want our help? And second, yeah, I know, right?
Of course they do. I have all the answers. How could they not want?
We see somebody suffering and we just want to jump in there and fix it, right?
Right.
We don't even stop to ask, do you want my help? Second, what would be most helpful to them, not from our perspective, but from their perspective? And so when we're working from both the head and the heart, we can really start to understand, okay, this might be helpful for me, but maybe not so helpful for them. Maybe they need something different. And so what I'm trying to do is bring a more humanitarian approach to diversity and inclusion.
Susan, you're making this difficult because you're really making me go, it's not about me.
Yeah, well, you're
Wait
right.
a minute. I mean, all the good intentions in the world won't help if we're not really working to what that person wants or needs. So good intentions, not getting the job done.
Yeah. Well, and I would say in a way, it's almost all about us in terms of how we understand what is our perspective and what are we bringing to the situation. And then also about the other person and how do we shift to really understand them better. And, we don't often mean to hurt other people. We do want to help, right? So we don't want to hurt them, but usually, inevitably, we do. And it's because we don't think from that other perspective, because we do kind of come in there and try to fix from our perspective. And the thing is, when we do things like that, when we hurt each other, we are not able to build trust, and it leads to disconnection. And one of the things that we know from research is that when we have social disconnection like we're having right now, it is more detrimental to our health than things like smoking, obesity, or high blood pressure. And so having this connection, and building and working from our heart is really important.
It's really hard to think about what other people need when you just have the answers,
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
So when you're thinking, I want you to share a story with us maybe about what we think somebody needs opposed to what they actually need. Do you have a story that you can share like
I
that? So,
do. Yeah, yeah. So this was actually compassionate diversity, which is what I've termed what I do, was born
love that.
from, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Was born from a story that I read, and this happened in Orlando. And there was a young man in Orlando who every day on his way to work, he would pass this homeless woman, and she would just wish him blessings. And because she didn't ask for anything special and just always seemed so positive, he felt very drawn to her. And so, Suzanne, when you see a homeless person on the street, what is it you think that they need?
Food, money, booze. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, right, right. Well, a lot of us typically go to that food, right? Unless you
Yeah.
live in a colder climate like I do and it's winter, and then you think, blankets,
Blankets.
right? Stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
But food. So that's what he thought. So he felt, this connection with her, and he invited her to lunch. And they started having discussions, and this became a regular thing. They'd go to lunch on a regular basis, and they started to build that connection and build that trust. And when she trusted him, she revealed to him that food was not her problem. There was a homeless shelter around the corner that she could go to and get food. It wasn't food. The issue was that
Wow.
she couldn't read. And so when we can't read, we can't fill out job applications, which means we
Mm.
can't get a job, we can't make money, we end up homeless. And so
Wow.
their lunches, they continued the lunches, but the lunches now turned into reading lessons. Right. And so
Oh
that's helping
my
from
gosh.
her perspective.
He stopped to listen.
Yeah.
He listened.
Yeah. And it was that trust and
Yeah.
connection first, right? It wasn't
Yes.
something that came out the first lunch, right?
Sure.
It took some time. Yeah.
So I guess this applies even with family and friends and,
Absolutely.
shouting and screaming and calling each other names is really not accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
The story that you shared, I mean, we all deserve to be safe and not just safe from being homeless, but safe from being screamed at and belittled. And I
Yeah.
mean, what you're doing by teaching this connectedness is you're helping people be safe in so many different ways, emotionally, physically, spiritually,
Yeah, all of
Mm.
it, all 4 of those dimensions,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, what are some final thoughts? Because the time is going by way too fast, but what is
yeah.
something that you would want to share with someone about your book?
Oh, boy, about my book, one of the core concepts, and this is in the book, is this idea about rather than fighting against, because we do spend so much time fighting, what about standing for? So we spend so much time fighting against hate, why
Mm.
not
Mm.
stand for love? It's a subtle shift, and it doesn't mean that we ignore all that other stuff. We have to understand, again, the meaning of compassion. We have to understand that other stuff. And when we start to stand for, rather than fight against discrimination, stand for equity, right? When we stand
Mhm.
for these things, we're focused on the solution. And so I just would love for us to be
Mm.
able to make that subtle shift. And when we're focused on that solution, it's a lot easier to work from our hearts.
Mhm. Mm. You can breathe. You
Yeah.
don't feel like you have to be in control of everything. Your book and your message, I keep visioning like this flower amongst weeds, and
Mm.
it's so refreshing and so desperately needed of any time in our life. This is when we need to have this message of listening to each other. Yeah, the D word, 12 steps to diversity recovery. Susan, thank you so much. You've got all the information on the screen. And if you're listening to the audio, please just go to Amazon. And how can people get a hold of you, Susan?
Well, they can go on out to my website. It is by my name. It's just susanmccuistion.com. So that's probably the easiest way to get hold of me.
Very good. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
what you're
Ben.
doing.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.